Doing my project for 2025. I'm lucky enough to be joined by Kristin Williams today. So thanks for joining with me today, Kristin.
Glad to be here, Christian. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, you're welcome. So this is my first, I'll say, podcast interview. So the goal for this today, everyone, is to kind of just go over what we're all experiencing, whether we're employed, unemployed, looking for a new job, just really kind of getting it out there and getting to talk to people again. With where we're at today, it seems like everything's automated and we're not talking to live people. I'm hoping that these types of conversations will help people in a journey similar to mine, or you're going through your own journey and you just want to share with people, because I think that's how we all grow and get better. So we're just going to have a roundtable conversation between myself and Kristin today, ask some questions, hopefully share some wisdom that we've gone through our career. So what I'll do first is I'm going to have Kristin give us a little bit background as to her career path, and I'll ask some questions regarding that, and we'll go from there. Kristin, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your background to everybody out there in the LinkedIn world.
Sure, I'll give it a quick 60-second commercial or less. I started my career actually in sales in the technology industry, and I did that for many years, and then found I had a passion for training and development of people. Had some great talented people on my teams that I led, and I found that investing in others was sort of where my passion lied. So I pivoted and I started in sales training, the discipline that I knew and the new skills that I wanted to do, and have since made a career, most recently leading leadership development for a Fortune 500 company until such time that we have recent layoffs. So for those of you that may be searching for work, I understand what you're going through. It's not my first rodeo, as I like to say. I've had a few different times when work was disrupted, not of my choosing, and so hopefully can share some ideas and strategies that I've used. But currently, I am looking to stay in leadership development, talent development work. It really is my passion, and so much so that I wrote a book many years ago to try and help people with some of the strategies and things I learned along the way. So with that, Christian, I'll turn it back to you.
Awesome. Well, if you don't mind, what were some of the key insights that you tried to share about the book you wrote a few years back?
I tried to share lessons that I thought were important to focus on when you're building a career. And I think that, I've worked in startups, I've worked in the wireless industry, I've worked in technology, and I've worked in the financial services industry. And what I was trying to impart for people were the things that I, looking back, learned that I had done or had acquired through wisdom of somebody else that really helped propel my career. And one of the key lessons and one of my passion discussions if I'm talking to people about career development is understanding your personal brand. And there's a lot that's been written about personal branding out in the workforce, but for you to take ownership and understand how you want to be perceived, what, descriptive words people would say of you, when you have people in your collective community that will stand up and go to bat for you because your brand is so strong, that's really one of the things in hindsight I've learned that helps me quickly really weather these storms, whether it be layoffs or economic times or things of that nature, because my community is strong, and that's because of the reputation and the personal brand. So I try and teach tactically, how do you build that brand? What do you pay attention to? And how it helps you in, good times and challenging times.
Do you think and personal brand is probably been out there, it's always been out there, but it's more important, I think, today with how technology is more involved. A lot of this is done online, and it really does sometimes come about who you know and who they know, in a sense, and that's really where the personal brand can come into play more so, because you're not maybe getting that chance to interview a person right away. It's finding a possible opening that you may be perfect fit for, but sometimes, it's getting past that gatekeeper, getting your foot in the door, and that's where that personal brand can really make a difference, I think.
I would absolutely wholeheartedly agree with that. And you highlighted something there, Christian, that I think is important for people to think about, is who's going to go advocate for you, right? Because that's the strength of your personal brand. So you might be perfect for a role and you're just one of many that are applying for it or hoping that the ATS system, understanding technology, picks up on the right keywords. But if you have a little hustle and you're not afraid to ask for help, there might be people in your community that can reach out to others at that organization or others in that industry to help you kind of raise the volume on the fact that you are looking at a particular opportunity. And I think that's one of my success strategies I would impart on people. It's so hard to ask for help when you go through some of these challenging times, and people want to help. People feel good helping other people, but people feel it's really tough to ask for that help. So if you have people and you've built a good brand, they're going to want to advocate for you. I can think of 3 people right now who are putting out effort on my behalf because they think that, I would be a good fit or I would help somebody. And that makes me feel good. It wasn't easy to do, right? You want to think you can do stuff on your own, but spend a few minutes at that party and then move on and ask for the help.
Yeah, and I think that you're absolutely right. That is key, because even though I'm new in this journey in a sense, I took a package in September from my wireless company, and I took some time off, and now I'm kind of getting back in the game, and I said, hey, I'm not going to rush, but what I've noticed is, some of the conversations I was able to have with other companies, it's because of the people I've known, and said, hey, and I may not have talked to them in years, but reaching out, and I've had that relationship or built that trust in them that they felt comfortable throwing out my name, whether or not it led to anything, but at least it got me in there. Plus it also rekindled conversations with coworkers or people you worked with in the past from outside companies that you may not have done otherwise, and it may help them down the line as well. So I think that's really where the key too is, like you said, asking for the help. And I don't think when you're new to LinkedIn, or at least I was, you accept everybody. And you have all these people in your network. You probably know maybe 10% if I had to guess. But when you reach out to them, even if they're in your network, they'll still talk to you. I've had people respond that no idea. If I throw a name out that they kind of know, they're like, okay, I'll talk to you for 5 minutes. And you go from there.
And all that reaching out and activity builds momentum. And I think when if you are finding yourself in a job search mode right now, building momentum really can help. Even if you're like the conversation we're having today, right? I have no expectations of other having a nice conversation and sharing some thoughts and ideas with yourself and with others, but it feels good to be doing something constructive. Right. And so that reaching out and talking to people and building momentum, having virtual or in-person coffee dates with people, whatever it is that you're doing, is very helpful. It's very helpful for you to keep a schedule and to build momentum.
Yeah, you definitely, when you have this type of free time, like you said, it's being constructive, building out the plan. I was reading one of the posts you put out a couple of months back, and you got it from somebody else, and it was like, here's my plan for every day. And you have to really stick to as much as you can. I'm a big believer, especially since I've have the free time, is making the list of 5-6 things I want to accomplish during that day, and just checking it off like you're in a sense like your job. Hey, boom, you get a little sense of accomplishment every time you do it, and brings a smile to your face. So I think that is extremely important as well. So with the career that you've taken and have had, what's the biggest misnomer people think of the position, whether it be a leadership coach or in the training that, people have about that type of position?
I think it's so funny because it popped right in my to the top of my mind when you said, what's the misnomer when it comes to training and development. And people think it's easy, right? Let me give you a sort of an analogy to that. Everybody here listening has probably seen somebody give a great presentation, right? Maybe they've been up on stage, maybe it's, been in person or virtual or what have you, and they give this great presentation and they're like, they've got great presentation skills. Giving a presentation's easy, even though talking publicly is one of the biggest fears everyone has. You see it and it looks easy, but the level of intricacies and dependencies in the work that you do, whether it be in design or delivery, is so intentional and thought out that for those that make it look easy, or you walk out of a training or a session and you're like, that was the best I ever had, but you can't put your finger quite on it. There's just a lot of different elements that go into it. It's like, I love to cook. That's my passion. And so if I'm making one of those simple 5-ingredient recipes, right, it might come out and taste great, but it's not going to be as complex and effective and perhaps memorable as something that had 15 ingredients and took me all day to simmer and get that flavor, right? So I think that just understanding that there's a lot of complexity to it, but it can be made look easy if you have all the building blocks that are right. And that takes strategy, and that takes thought and design and beta testing and all of that to get it there. It's just not something that you turn on and off very easily.
Yeah, I think there's only a few people that can do that. I think anytime you see anything done great, whether it be a presentation, it could be sports, it could be cooking, there was years of preparation and going involved in that. And even for a presentation, the one thing that they would always tell us when we would do interviews or, I had to do a lot of presenting for trainings. It's practicing it. It's videotaping yourself, which is, like I said, the biggest fear people have is public speaking, even though we all do it. But there's a difference between having this conversation, even though it could go out to hopefully hundreds of thousands of people, and standing in front of, even to be 20 people and having to present in front of them. Because there will be an error made and everyone's looking for it. But you said the key is to prepare for it. And anytime you prepare, you're going to be better. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to get. So if you're doing a presentation that you have to do 20 times, after the first couple, you get better at it. It becomes more natural. Sometimes that's not always good either, because then you forget what you're doing. So you have to, rekindle those vibes of why this is important or why this is exciting. It's like cooking. If you're doing like you said, a 5-ingredient, you can do that blindfolded in a sense. But you may miss, if it's a little dab here. I know my wife bakes a lot. People ask her a recipe. She doesn't have a recipe. She just does it, and she knows what's supposed to be done. But occasionally, if she misses a little bit extra sugar or whatever the case is, it's not always the same. But it's still really good. I mean, that's the thing. It may not be perfect to her, but it's really good. And that's the hardest thing with presentations. Sometimes we're our toughest critics, right?
Absolutely. Always.
Awesome. Thank you. What's the one leadership lesson you think everyone should learn?
What I'm going to say is being talked a lot in leadership circles right now. And there's kind of a convergence with technology and authenticity. It's like to say you need to be authentic as a leader, I think is one of the most important ingredients that you can have. You may not be able to tell everybody everything, going on, but be honest about it. Be who you are. Don't be afraid to be who you are. And if we look at that intersecting with AI technology, right, in leadership, I think that's going to be a challenge for people that are, using some of those tools to then balance their authenticity with it. So, if you are having a difficult conversation with somebody and AI, the top 5 tips, for having a difficult conversation, if you go robotic on trying to be those 5 rather than taking a look and going, which ones could I really be authentically, I think is important. So I think authenticity, and if I can give a second answer to that, I think curiosity. I think leaders need to be curious. We need to be curious about our people, our processes, what they're going through, what we can make better. Try to understand what's going on as opposed to coming in and trying to solve a problem. I think is just a great attribute for any leader.
Yeah, those two would be really important. Curiosity is definitely, especially a new leader in a sense, because a lot of times a leader is brought in to accomplish ABC goals. But a curious leader is going to understand whatever team or whatever they're doing is involved in it, and understanding how they work best to accomplish those goals. Because if you don't, you can maybe not hit your goals, or maybe it takes you longer. But if you truly understand who you're working with and ask questions to understand it, you can get there usually a lot quicker, and everyone's happier. It's long term.
I agree. And you don't have to have all the answers.
Yes.
Right? As a leader.
Yeah.
You don't, your team will help you. In fact, they'll probably be stronger if you work together.
Yeah, a good leader, if you get to pick your team, you always pick smarter people than you.
Yes.
I mean, because that's how you know a good leader, too. That's how I was always used to judge it when I managed people directly. The more people I got promoted, I knew I was a good leader. Because they're learning and they're getting better. You always wanted to get your people promoted. Sometimes you didn't want them all the time, especially in sales. You lost your best sales reps. But that was a good thing, because that means you were, achieving your goals and exceeding it, and they were getting to where they needed to be.
I agree. I think that's a really healthy measurement stick for leaders, is how many people can promote out into the organization. Are we keeping our good people? I've worked with leaders that I've coached personally. They're like, but everybody comes to my team to get talent. And I'm like, I know it's painful, but it's also the biggest compliment, that you can get.
No, agree. I've followed a similar path in a sense, sales, and then I was involved in a lot of training and leadership training with the various teams I worked with, but still stayed in sales, so I had a mixture. What's the one piece of advice you'd get someone that wanted to do a similar path to what you've done over your career?
I would say raise your hand to take on different projects, especially ones that might make you uncomfortable, because those experiences, I think, will really help you in your leadership journey. People who want to move ahead in their career need to have a varied sort of set of experiences. And too often, I think some people think, well, if I work really hard, somebody's going to notice and I'm going to get promoted. That may happen, but more often than not, the person who's raised their hand and asked for additional projects or has tried to learn other things or asked to shadow other jobs to learn whatever opportunities may be available to them, if they've shown initiative and taken initiative, I think that they'll get to their desired outcome faster. I remember coaching I won't say young professional. I would say she's, probably 10, 15 years into her career recently at a big Fortune 100 company in our area. And she wanted to get to be associate vice president of this particular area. And she was asked to be doing different things, in the company. And she didn't see the path of how that was moving her along. But if she understood she was getting access to other information, departments, building her network, meeting other people, she eventually did get the AVP role that she wanted. Maybe not in the time frame that she had first thought, but she told me recently, looking back now, she could see how those are all the building blocks to getting her to that position when that position opened up.
Yeah, in my experience, especially in the Fortune 500s or 100 companies I've worked for, the people that wanted to be in leadership, they took on new roles literally every 2 years because that wasn't the career path I wanted. It wasn't like a career, hey, I needed to be management, then a VP, so on and so forth. It wasn't as important to me, but I know those, it was every 2 years. Okay, I've done this, I've done it well, let's try something new. And then, 5 years down the line, 8 years down the line, like I said, they might be a VP. And you're like, oh, that made sense because, they went from, say, consumer sales to B2B sales to whatever else may be available depending on the industry. And they worked their way up because that was their goal.
And I think it's important to call out, though, that not everybody wants to be on that path.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So taking initiative and learning new things will make you more marketable. It might actually give you more joy in your work, because you have diversity. So not everybody listening is going to be in a Fortune 500 or 100 company, although that may be some of our experiences. I've been employee number 38 in a startup. I've worked for privately held companies. I have a lot of different types of companies in my background, and I've done volunteer work for a nonprofit. Whatever sort of industry you find yourself in, being able to try different things will make you more marketable, will give you more stories, especially if you're in the job search mode. If you're interviewing or getting to the chance where you can talk to people, being able to tell stories and impact and outcomes, I think are really important. So doing all these different things or raising your hand will give you more opportunity to build those stories.
Agree. First, appreciate all the great insight. Is there any other information from a career perspective or a job search perspective you want to share with everyone out there?
Well, I want to share one thing that I learned recently, especially if a lot of people listening to this might be in job search mode. I never thought about searching for a job in a community. And there's actually a nonprofit. They have a page on LinkedIn called Never Search Alone, where they have different events where they will put you in a community to work with other people through a structure that they have on how to look for a role, how to look for your next role. Because as supportive as friends and family want to be and can, they're not on that roller coaster, especially if you are in a position of a job search where time is ticking and you've got stress on your side. Maybe you're a single parent. Maybe, you just put a down payment on something. You don't have a lot of cash floating around. There might be a lot of urgency to your situation. So I found it to be a really great organization that was referred to me by someone in my network. Really great stand-up people, and so for anybody that's interested, I just wanted to leave them with that tip. It was news to me.
Never Search Alone.
Never Search Alone.
Okay,
and you can search for it on LinkedIn.
Awesome. I'll make sure I put that in the notes when I post this. But no, that like you said, that's another tool, and that's the key for any kind of search or a community like this is to get, ask for help, get people involved that want to help and that maybe specialize in these types of things that, give you some insight that we've not thought of. Because, we think we know lots of things and we usually do, but there are people that have been doing this longer or just have more experience in certain aspects of the world than we may have out there. Awesome. Well, since you mentioned your passion outside of work is cooking, what's your favorite dish to make for people?
Well, there's probably nothing that I don't like to cook, but I have an annual event where I make a French cassoulet every winter. And the recipe that I use is from a small town in France where they have a society that manages it, and it has 72 ingredients and takes me a week. So when you get invited to that dinner party, please come hungry. That's all I can say.
Wow. A week to prepare, huh?
Yeah, and there's a whole town in Toulouse, France that's known for cassoulet. So it's a lot of fun. It's very hearty. It's country food. It's not fancy, but it is delicious.
Interesting. Did you go to that city? Have you been there before? Is that where you came across it? Oh, okay.
Yes, I've been there before, and a little bit of a Francophile, so I have fun traveling through France.
Well, first of all, once again, I appreciate the time. I hope anyone that was able to listen to this or view this, however you were choosing to, gain some information here. I said that's really the goal for this kind of conversation. I learned something today. I will take, in my search going forward. I hope Kristin enjoyed having this conversation. I truly appreciate her time. I know we are busy, just with daily life. So to take, a half an hour, 45 minutes out of your time today, I do appreciate it, Kristin.
Well, my pleasure. And thank you for trying to put the human connection back in getting information out there. Posts are great, but I love this new thing, and I wish you all the success with it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Well, you have a great day.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.